Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to pre-order upcoming Force of Will sets, ccgprime.com for singles and supplies, cardodoko.com for those rulers in the international market looking for product, the Ruler School Circuit Series now taking orders on our Q3 2024 circuit kits, and our guest lecturer members, Fight Ramen. Class is in session. Already just base inheritance. Hey there, rulers! Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will to your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast. It's Office Hours, featuring myself, DMO73, and I'm joined as always by Paul Reisman.
I'm the reason we're here on time.
He is, and Mike Rance.
Weird.
I might be the reason that we were almost late.
It's true. I'm probably the reason, really, to be perfectly honest. So we are here. If you guys like what we're doing, want to consider supporting the channel, you can click that join button down below. It is the easiest way to support us financially. Show us that you care and get into that cool member perks like the emotes that we have and all other kinds of cool stuff. But we're glad that you're here. If you like, share, and subscribe, always appreciated for anyone you know who likes Force of Will. Tonight we're playing a little bit chill. Not a ton of news in the wake of the ABC deck stuff that we discussed last week. But hey guys, did you know that there was a major competitive tournament this weekend that had an invite?
But I heard Jeremy Franklin played in it, so I don't know if it's really that competitively viable.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Except that I've
heard that guy's washed.
Yeah, that guy might be washed. Except I proved that I wasn't washed. I went 4-0-1, ended at second seed after 5 rounds of Swiss on Glorious Solarization. That is the deck that I piloted for a 4-0-1 finish. And then I conceded to our good friend of the pod, Shunpo, who got his invite to Worlds. Yay! Because he lost his top 4 match, and then we found out that 2 of the 4 people in the top 8 top 4 had invites already, and then a player from Singapore for some reason decided to give up their invite for personal reasons, and so Converging Wills awarded a second invite at this event, so both Averlath and Shunpo are going to Worlds.
Ooh, baby, yeah.
Literally happened as top 4 was going on. Like this news was announced, so
congratulations.
Friend. Shout out to me for bullying people. Yeah, I bullied people. I bullied people a lot. I blew up so many stones. I think my total stone kill count was 15 over the course of the day. Number of stones that I blew up.
That's mean, Jeremy. That's pretty mean.
I did blow up a lot of stones. It was a fun format. They decided to be bullied by disrespecting Mask. Yeah, that was the strangest thing to me, is in looking at the top 8 lists, there was no respect for Mask. Like in the top 8 lists, if you look at them, like one could argue that the Gruus Ballesta mood chart lists kinda do, because the Tempstone stuff that they're using right now, which was pretty neat, was the 2-drop Scorpion and Red Wine and Bread, which both bring in a stone into play recovered. So then like they have the 1 will to pay into Mask to use Gruus Ballesta to turn it into a permanent stone. Like they kind of have some play around Mask, but it's not like so crazy. And they also can't fight. Like they can't fight me under Mask. They certainly weren't being able to do any kind of fighting if I chose to get interactive. Hey, I had 2 Regale You Break and Heavenly Gust in the side. Yeah, it was sideboarded for sure. Main decks were not respecting Mask at all. But also like people weren't playing them. I think there were 3 Glorious lists and 1 stacks taxing Zaki in the list, like in the format. But other than that, there just like weren't that many Mask decks. So the tag 6 Sage decks were an absolute meta call. The burn, the Life Loss Mylest Moodstart, which is a cool evolution on the burn version of Mylest Moodstart from last format, was definitely a meta call, and he called that there weren't a lot of Mask players showing up, and was right. Although I would have paired up into him into top 4 if I had taken out Shunpo, which I was not going to do, buddy. And I don't think that matchup would have gone well for him. Like I think a Mask would come down on 1, or even just hard casting it on 2, and the game would change very dramatically very quickly. 4 Suya mains, Yeah, Justwayne had solo Moonstart with the taxing. That's true. I did play against him in round 1. That was an interesting list. So we got some, like, the tournament itself showed me a couple of things. It started to show the beginnings of what the floor of Worlds testing is like, I think, in the form of Glorious or like other mask decks, 6 Sage tags, certainly present. Order Shiva made it into the top 8. Like, there's Sherry. So the top 8 was 2 Moonstart Grus Ballestas, an Almerius Grus Ballesta, a Mylist Moonstart, and then me on Glorious, an Order Shiva, a brain, a Sherry Lumia. Sorry, no, a Sherry Abdul. Oh, there were 2 Almerius Grus Ballestas. So 2 Almerius Grus Ballestas, 2 Moonstart Grus Ballestas, Mylist Moonstart, Shiva, Glorious, and Sherry Abdul. So still a pretty cool diversity there. Stephen Holsheiser is like, Jeremy, you're always gonna say it's a cool spread, and I'm like, yeah, but it's actually kind of a cool spread. Like, we had control stuff, we had aggro stuff, we had burn stuff, we had mid-range stuff. It's pretty neat, cool stuff. I don't really know how to classify Replicant Odin. Like, am I a tempo deck where my big tempo play is to prevent my opponent from ever having tempo again? I don't know. Is that what I'm doing?
Yeah.
I guess.
I guess.
Yeah.
My big tempo swing.
List.
Yeah, my big
Yes.
tempo swing is just telling my opponent they're not allowed to have tempo. I don't know. Maybe that's it. So maybe I'm the real death and taxes of the thing, but the tax is just
Best
no
way
more.
to main tempo is to remove all the tempo.
Yeah, just telling my opponent they're not allowed to play cards. That's death and taxes is tempo control. So I guess, yeah, for sure. So I mean, it was a cool spread. I think the big lessons were that people were not respecting the regalia enough or trying to play the regalia enough, which to me signals that we've still got a lot to learn before Worlds. Like, this was an exciting kind of start to the format. Stop in the name of the law.
Stop! You violated the law.
Yeah. One thing that, for people who don't know, and so I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this, guys, is, because I can tell you from my experience having played the deck, but I'm curious what you guys would think, is it was decided about 24 hours before the tournament that Converging Wills was going to consider every ability that was pay cost, discard this card, would be treated as an inheritance ability. It would essentially be granted the keyword. Within 2 hours of that, we were confirmed that that is not how it's going to be ruled for Worlds. So this tournament had a different ruling than it would be for Worlds. In your mind, in hearing that, what are the things that kind of come to your mind about deciding to make that decision?
Ooh. I want to choose my words carefully.
Sure.
I won't.
Um,
Go ahead, Paul.
I think this is one of those. It's in some ways, this feels like a very similar situation to what just happened at Yu-Gi-Oh! Worlds, but the community doing something ahead of what the official company would do in order to force their hand. Because honestly, that ruling probably should have been offered a lot sooner than it had been. The fact that Converging Wills was like, we're going to do it this way, and then the company's like, okay, now we have to do it this other way. Yeah. Mike, you can take over now.
I feel like Paul's anger translator. You guys know that Key and Peele sketch where it's like,
yeah.
where you guys are trying to be very PG and very politically, correct for the company about this.
Yes,
I'm not.
I am Barack Obama in this scenario.
Sure.
and I'm
Sure.
Luther. Anyway, that's actually insane that they would. First of all, like the fact that Converging Wills was willing to put it up ahead of time is like, kudos for trying to make a ruling happen, and like pretty much, I think Patrick said it great. Basically, forced the company to clarify what it's going to be for
Yeah.
Worlds, because that gives players a lot of time to actually
Yeah, for
put
sure.
something together and figure their shit out. But man, is that bad communication? I think that is just awful, especially when they've Romer of the Crimson Moon was not Inheritance, right, on her original printing.
That is correct.
And clearly, with this latest promo printing, we're seeing Inheritance being printed more and more on these cards that have.
Also, in the same set as Romer, we also had Ray Astable, which it was not originally printed with Inheritance, but the Masterpiece 1 Pilgrim Memories printing of Ray Astable converted him to having an Inheritance ability. So they
and then you get Trow, which was just.
Those were all the DBV. That happened in the ABC decks. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's been in like last Worlds was where that was initially shown. Was the first time I got to see the Inheritance
the
on
Persephone
cards that didn't
promo.
have it.
Yep, was for sure.
Persephone promo as well. They're like, it's just clear that they're moving towards it, and instead of just constantly putting out reprinted cards that have this, just make the rule change. Like,
it's this very interesting. So I'll play devil's advocate, right? I'll play devil's advocate on it because, and I'll say this because like now having played under that ruling, specifically playing Glorious, I'll speak to kind of why I'm hesitant to be on the side of just blatantly, flat out making everything Inheritance for 2 points. One, we have effects in this game that says when this card deal damage, you gain that much life. That is not Drain. That is specifically not Drain. But we have other things that are Drain, and they are different effects. So it's not like... So there's two sides to this. There's a cleanliness side and a meta impact side. Making the decision to make all of them Inheritance from a cleanliness side would make a lot of sense. 100%, I don't disagree. It would clean things up. It would make things smoother. It would be you won't have to worry about the distinction or whatever. Especially considering the ABC decks haven't been out everywhere. And so having these reprints known has been a little bit of a challenge, right? Totally concede that point. I think it's totally fair. In terms of meta impact, I absolutely do not think that it should be changed. Because... And here's why. It exclusively benefits one ruler out of over 200. There is zero benefit to changing it so that they are all Inheritance, except to buff Glorious. And I will say this from the perspective of, I played cards and I had games where if I was not under the Inheritance change, I would not have drawn deep enough to get to my outs. There were specific games where I needed to go one card deeper, and because Asmodeus Attendant had Inheritance, I was able to go one card deeper, right?
That makes a lot of sense.
Whereas
Asmodeus Inheritance was also like the main draw of the Odin package.
Exactly. But then but then it didn't hurt me to play 4 copies of Asmodeus Attendant because the dead ones sitting in my hand could just be pitched to become other cards. It exclusively made my deck more consistent, hands down. So, like, I get that they have been updating things, but until they specifically say this card has a new printing with Inheritance on it, I think cards should stay status quo. Because it just doesn't, like, from a meta impact perspective, that actually played a difference. I will say this, my deck also... I got the secondary benefit in the fact that I got to test out a card in the deck with 0 risk to myself that became absolute trash all day. Dragon of Megiddo, the 3-drop flame, like wind dragon that I can pitch to pop my own edition. I'm playing the Starfall dragon as a way to protect Mask. That card doesn't have Inheritance. The Inheritance ruling happened, and I took out 3 cards that have Inheritance to put that card in to test it. If the Inheritance ruling hadn't been in place, I wouldn't have played those 3 cards, or if I had played those 3 cards, my deck would have performed way worse. I literally, all day on Saturday, used that card exclusively to dig. I did not use its activate ability. I did not cast it. I did not attempt to blow up my own additions and reanimate it. It was garbage. And I benefited from playing a card that was absolute garbage because of that ruling. If that ruling hadn't been in effect, I wouldn't have played that card. So from the
Now I'll play devil's advocate to your devil's advocate.
Go for it.
I do agree with all that. I do think though the Dragon Megiddo thing is I will say that's a moot point, because the only thing you're saying is that it helped you as a player who was trying to experiment a little bit before the tournament play a card that shouldn't have been taken out during testing. I think that that doesn't really have too much bearing on this.
Right.
Personally.
I mean, I wouldn't have made that testing impact. So I wouldn't have made that testing decision to try it had it not been for the ruling, because previously going into the tournament, I would have recognized, this card is garbage. But because of the ruling, I wasn't punished for trying something in a competitive environment as opposed to a testing environment, right? And again, that's a minor thing. That's minor. For me, it's more the Asmodeus attendant letting me be able to dig and ditch dead copies of it. That's a key linchpin card that I really only ever need to see one of. And so the fact that I could easily pitch, but I need to play 4 of it, so pitching the other copies for free for no qualm was a big impact on my deck's success. It was a huge, big piece there. So that's the thing, is just from a competitive perspective. Now, if we had 3 or 4 other 3, 4, 5 other rulers, or other cards that synergize with inheritance or something that weren't ruler so driven, sure, then okay, fine. But the idea that this change to retroactively just decide these cards that the company has not come out and said they have inheritance now on exclusively benefits one ruler out of over 200, and she already got Mask.
Yeah.
Right? She doesn't...
I don't know what to tell you, man. It's the year of Faria. Just let her have it.
Listen, the joke of the thing is I'm not washed up because I went 4-0-1. I legitimately think I was favored to win that entire tournament with how the top 8 bracket looked. And the inheritance ruling.
The thing is, with the inheritance ruling and all of this, I think the one takeaway we can all clearly say is that if your Glorious Faria is good because of these 2 things. Well, this one thing is not intended for Worlds, which means that the Mask is still on the table to make Glorious good for Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is you can absolutely play Prego TK at Worlds.
100%.
And win.
Yes.
Because Jeremy has shown you that Glorious can get to
Wait. I didn't say that you could play Prego TK at Worlds and win, but you can play Prego TK at Worlds.
No, Jeremy,
it is a legitimate strategy.
It's legitimate strategy.
Legitimate, and it is legal to play.
Listen, we blow up. No, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I got it. We blow up all their stones with the Odin package, then we Prego TK them.
They can't respond. It's perfect. It's the perfect crime.
It's the perfect crime. And that, I think there are other versions of Faria too that aren't Prego TK that I think are still playable. But I mean, I think my run with the Solarized Odin for sure proved that the ruler's got legs. I mean, there's stuff to explore. That's why I say that I think the biggest takeaway from the tournament overall is that it showed us the start of the floor of what is Worlds viable. Right? I do not think it solved the format by any means. It was a tournament that had a lot of really strong contenders from all over the world, good players and good builders and pilots. But it was truly the start of the race to see what gets played at Worlds.
Bobby, I didn't.
If Glorious is mentioned, it's going to be talked about.
The moment Mask was shown, I'm like, this deck also has.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Milan this weekend too. That's true, Shumpo. Cool. We also have Milan this weekend. So that'll be some interesting data. That'll be obviously not using the inheritance ruling from CW. The start of the arms race to Worlds. Yeah, I'm very excited to see what comes out of testing. I think we could have run that exact same tournament from Converging Wills a little bit differently. We could run it back again this Saturday. and we could have gotten entirely different results. Like I said, I was the only Faria even close. We also had Lumia was on the bubble. Like red white flicker Lumia was on the bubble. And another order Shiva, a second order Shiva was on the bubble. So lots of space to be explored. Lots of stuff to still go into it, which is pretty fun. I'll take a moment to myself. It did feel kind of nice to come back to this tournament with like a not just like an easy locals or anything else like that, and walk away with a straight positive record, second seed. You know, I've been doing commentary and content for a while, and I mess up all the time on the feature matches and then commentate about how I'm stupid and bad at this game. But it was nice to put up a result that was like, hey, I'm actually not. I know what I'm doing. I'm pretty good.
I don't just commentate and show for this game. I can play it.
Yeah, for sure. I can play it. And also, on a deck list that was, while I had some people help me tweak some numbers and final like card choices for a couple of tech slots, like I built this list from the ground up. Like, so that's also really satisfying. Like I didn't take it from anywhere. I just like had this idea. I put it together. I ran it through some testing, like the very stereotypical, like, let's go test and figure this idea out. And I proved that it's got legs. And I also proved to myself why I don't compete anymore. Because by the end of round 5, my hands were like this, and I had a massive headache.
Yeah,
like just the nerves of playing competitively for 5 rounds, even in a low stakes tournament. Because for me, I knew I wasn't going to try to play to first place because I wasn't going to try to steal an invite for someone. It was still just like,
Yeah, the tournament jitters are real. That's why I'm also very happy that I don't currently play competitively. Even at Worlds, where like I didn't really have like any skin in the game because I hadn't played in like 2 years, and I was just going for the nice trip to Japan with friends. Like, I got the great trip to Japan with friends, and then I also just got to kind of goof around with some garbage that I knew I wasn't going to win with.
yeah.
And then I had to read an entire Order Gnarly deck in Chinese, and I had to have a judge come over and tell me what every single card did, and I'll be like, oh, okay, so this one's the one I have to cancel. Got it.
Yeah.
My mistake in game 1 was winning red, white, and red resolve, which then caused me to die.
Yeah, that'll happen. That would happen. Tournament fatigue is very real. Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Very real.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
it's real.
Absolutely.
It is a test. It is the SATs.
That is why I am now designing and not playing.
Yeah. And
drink your water.
You gotta drink water. You gotta drink. You gotta drink water. You gotta drink water. Listen.
Don't drink it.
Listen here, Cricket. I was happy to see my list mooch made it into top 8. Your list was pretty similar to but yeah, I think that list was good. I don't think that list was respecting Mask at all. Like I even talked with Fran about like the player who was on it is like we could try to run it he and I might just run it personally just to see. But I was looking at the main board and I was like, there's not even any Suya's main board. Like I think if I stick a turn 1 mask, maybe I think if I stick a turn 1 mask, this match is just over. Like if I stick an opening mask, he had like 0 answers to it in the main board. I suppose there was like Ray Asnable to be able to stop my Odin from coming down, but I'm just gonna Persephone that as soon as he taps out to play 3 for it. And I did that to people, by the way. They would go, well, I'll tap out and play it. I'll tap out and try to play a Ray Asnable to stop the Odin, and I just went Persephone, Odin. Okay, we're done. You know, every card game you've been with, I've always burned out in the end of the competitive events. Yeah, that's true. I feel that, though. I feel that vibe. It was like I haven't played in a major multi-round competitive event in quite some time. And I thought that because it was so low stakes and my deck was just kind of designed how it was, that I wouldn't necessarily experience that, because I only went to time in 1 round. I only went to time in the last round because like I was finishing matches quickly. But even by the end of the day, I was like, wow, I shouldn't be doing this anymore. I am anxious.
I have literally been on record like getting absolutely wrecked by tournament fatigue. In my finals against Gerardo back in
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Where we watched
2020.
you do the loop without going +1 twice.
I looped with no movement on the board state to the point where Gerardo had to help me so that he could get to game 2 faster because he knew that game 1 was finished.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
for
like,
sure.
you know what, man, my brain's broken. I've been doing this for too long.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest, like, outside of the competitive space takeaway for me too, I think for me, another interesting point that came out of me from this weekend was that the off-season non-competitive play space is incredibly diverse. Like, this was a competitive tournament where people still didn't respect Mask and people weren't playing Mask. I can only imagine, like, how much more that's going to play into, like, just casuals or just, like, goofing around, having some fun stuff. Like, the breakdown is insane. I think I sent you a... Did I send you a list of the full breakdown, Paul?
Yeah, you did.
Can you...
Yeah, 5 Mujdart Grizz Ballestas, 3 Mindless Mujdart, 3 Odin God of War, so Order Odin,
Yep.
3 Glorious, 2 Shiva, 2 Zaki,
Yep.
2 Lumia 2, 2 Adine, 2 Hanada, 2 Almirius Grizz Ballesta, and then one of Wolfgang Exiled Demon Prince, Bianchi, Excalibur Genesis, Solo Mujdart.
Let's go.
Rhea,
Chad moves.
Order Nyali, Misung, Laika, Liberator of Wind, Ebony Prophet, and Little Red Riding Hood, Seer of the Blue Moon.
Like, this is...
And you'll see all that in the tournament update, of course. But
yeah, like, that's...
Yeah.
That was a competitive event with people playing for an invite to Worlds, right? Like, that's... overall spread is so crazy varied and so diverse, even knowing that Mask and the other regalia were going to be potentially present. I can only imagine how much more goofy and crazy ideas people can put together outside of it. Like, I've been having a great time playing with the new rulers. They've been a ton of fun. I'm also really enjoying revisiting old rulers. Like, you saw me play Fox. That was, like, honestly a blast. I'm working on an Astema Belial build, and I'm looking on a new Seer Abdul build that's stealth. Hey, bringing back stealth, baby. I've also considered not playing Abdul at all and just playing mono Seer stealth so that I can also play the regalia as well, which I think might be fun. Because I do think that there's some more space there.
Jeremy, can you put your mouse cursor, like, right over Paul's nose so you can pretend like you're tickling his nose?
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I just think there's a lot of fun to be had in this environment, which I think is really awesome to be going into the off season and the, like, ruler school Q4 circuit season, like,
wait, what's
with
that?
just a lot of freedom.
Hang on. I hear something. It's your daily reminder out there that because Jeremy's talking about how cool this is in a non-competitive format right now, play in the OLS
every Friday. Cal's
play
OLS.
These decks. They're fun.
Yeah.
Cal's OLS. Just play it.
Yeah. With new promo, he got new promos in, so definitely should check that out.
Yeah, there's pricing, and you don't have to, like...
You can play on Tabletop Simulator, Untap, or Webcam.
Yeah, it's like you can do anything you want.
Any way you want to play, you can play into it. Yeah, and it's free. You're right.
It's free.
It's free.
If you play in it, you get free promos. Like, that's insane. That is the most crack thing in the world.
Can't argue with that. Paul, how's Zaki been going for you?
Oh, I'm playing her in the worst way possible.
Ooh, okay.
So I am pivoting entirely to just playing good old Zaki mulligan control, look for the things that I need, and then just skip turns and do those things instead. I'm trying to make clues work. It's not working. She ain't cluing.
Blues clues.
Not a combo format.
Dude, we can do.
So yeah. So not good, but We are retooling.
Okay. But are you having fun
So
in the process of the learning and the playing and the retooling?
it is such a fun solitaire deck.
Well, Jeremy, he's got to be having fun to like learning about it. Like he's investigating
He's
constantly.
investigating
I'm
constantly.
constantly investigating. This is
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. So I do want to talk a little bit here about, for those of you who haven't seen the top 8 lists, again, Paul's going to do a tournament report. But the Glorious Odin deck, currently, the kind of concept behind it when I first created it was this, the idea of how can I abuse the crap out of, how can I dodge all the regalia possible and abuse the crap out of priority retainment. Primarily Asmodeus's attendant. You think about the 3 regalia in Star Scale. I only ever won a judgment once with Faria anyway, because she doesn't have imperishable. So if she judgments once and then dies, okay. That's fine. And my stone base doesn't care either, so don't care about Star Scale, and I'm not doing burn damage. Great. Star Scale literally does nothing against my deck. We've done it. Mask. Well, I'm playing it, so that's not a problem. Pretty simple to solve that problem, which then became problem number 3, which was the Star Scale. And we said, wait a minute, Lahen's not going to exist in the meta because, pretty much likely not going to exist in the meta because of shards and therapist and all this, and mask. These were going to be things that kind of really gate checked Lahen. So solarization is suddenly back on the table. What's the most abusive things that I can do with solarization? And that became, Odin only needs solarization 2 and can blow up stones, and it can be really will efficient. And then I went, well, how am I going to get cards to the RFG? And then I went, oh wait, Asmodeus Attendant. Because Asmodeus Attendant also then retains priority after his enter effect resolves, because he's not a quick cast guy, so he just recovers 3 stones. I have 5 cards in the RFG, retain priority. Great. So pretty much always was just able to, on curve, provided I saw them, have a protected Asmodeus Attendant into Odin, protected because of Mask. Now, if I didn't see Mask, because I did have some games where I didn't see Mask, I just waited a turn longer, usually was enough, because then it's like my opponent would try to commit to something and I would try to answer them and kind of force them to spend some of their resources on their turn. And then I'd be able to use things like Lorite, Persephone, and Garion to protect the Asmodeus' Attendant into the Odin. And everybody's playing Special Stones. So we get to blow up Special Stones a lot. And when you have 4 stones and your opponent has 0 stones, and you have a 15/15 flyer that can stat neg their board for free, most people concede. That's usually how it went. The other crazy thing that was about it for us with why I really liked Odin as a green, white, black variant, because there's also a green, white, red variant of Glorious and a green, white, blue, is that Odin also becomes a solarization fueler, because he can remove resonators from the graveyard as cost. So then you can immediately tuck them back into the deck before your opponent can try to remove them with shards, because you can retain priority. So I also played Replicant Kaguya and felt great about it. So worst or best, punishment is real. Yeah, punishment for sure was real. So designed the deck to be able to play around all 3 regalia, did so effectively very, very well, while also being able to play a glorious deck that was able to play the game even without Mask. Because I think that was the other problem too, that people were thinking about Mask, and maybe why they didn't, is like they tried to build a deck that could play Mask, play under Mask, but most of the builds, like if they didn't see Mask, would feel really bad. And then I'm like, well, you can play a lot of really good stuff in the early turns and play protective in Glorious, and then you can also help to dig to try to find a Mask to even cast it for 2. You just have to, I think that's why the green, white, black version works the best, is because you get access to Life Sapper Chrono Gear, which is just pay 1 black, make 2 dudes. It's very good against defense. You get to play Lorite. You get to play Fairy Chrono Gear. Starfall was an insane card all weekend. Multiple times I had players, like I was on the coin and they'd go Suya on one. I go coin, Starfall, make a Meteorite token, sack the Meteorite token, draw a card. Hey, like you guys saw me do on the feature bench. So I don't know. The deck felt really good. I think the deck feels very Worlds contender, Worlds contender level. But I think that there is more to I think there's more to the world of playing under the regalia or with the regalia that people haven't explored yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of it, because I think there is more to be done. And I was the only deck in top 8 that had masks, by the way.
Yeah, you were.
The only deck in top 8 with masks. The only other regalia that were present in the top 8 were a couple copies of Ice Shards in like 4 of the decks.
Sideboarded.
Yeah, sideboarded. One of the guys that I played with, I ended up drawing. He had sideboarded in the shards, and when we were done, he was like, "These shards don't do anything against you." I was like, "Correct, dude. Literally nothing. They do not affect me at all." So,
this is correct.
Yggdrasil, Heroic Spirit of the World Tree, can help mask. You can't search mask with Yggdrasil. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, you can't.
So there's a world where like you could play. I think there's because that's another big takeaway. Ramp in this format is honestly very good. Whether it's playing Mana Dorks or playing things like Guardian Dragon or that kind of stuff, very, very good in this format. I think that's what the Gruus Ballesta Moonstart decks were doing, is like playing, like I said, playing Red Wine and Bread to make a stone to then have Gruus Ballesta sack it and make it a permanent stone, like that kind of thing. Like Stone Ramp is good in this format. And then that's funny because then they're tapped out and they have more stones than me. And I just go, "Oh, you got to 3 stones really fast. Here's an Odin." Whee! I did have a player. Normally when you're going first playing the Odin deck, you can't go for Odin until turn 4 because you need your opponent to have 3 stones in order to be able to blow them up. But fun fact, when they play Guardian Dragon on their turn 2 to get a 3rd stone, you can Odin them on turn 3. Works great.
Yeah.
Just have to draw mask. But that's what I'm saying, is like mask in the early turns obviously is good, but I designed I think there are ways to build a deck that doesn't have to have mask in order to be functional. I think my Glorious List is a good example of that. So
you gotta get in deep.
Yeah.
I think there's I actually sat down at the very start of this format and just was like, okay, what are the main cards? In like one little corner of a sticky note. And then I like created another corner of the sticky note where I just started like listing things that could pop regalia. Right. And then I just made a whole thing. You might see that in a video someday, but I just made like a whole list of things that is publicly available for folks to just say like, oh, I could use these as generic tool answers. But there's also a lot of rulers that have built-in answers to regalia that we don't talk about very much.
Yeah. So. And there are legitimately plenty of rulers out there that do not care about the regalia. I think another good example is Belial Astema. Belial Astema can play Suyas. So here's the other thing about Belial Astema. Belial Astema has the inherent strength of having some of the best ways to consistently answer a turn 1 mask in the game. Because they can play something like Prideful Rule for 2 will to kill the mask and then make a token, and then Astema goes, "Oh hey, produce a will." Great. So I technically paid
Very
1.
nice.
And I technically paid 1. I answered your mask, and I got a body on field. Or cast Suya. Okay. You flash something in to stop it. That gets sacked. Produce will with Astema. play another Suya. Like, yeah, like there are ways to be able to mess with Mask in such a way, or ignore the regalia in such a way, that I think people should try to look into. I think there's certainly things that can play into it. You know, I question how I wonder how Astema Gruus Ballesta or Astema Belial would play into these Gruus Ballesta Start lists. Oh, you sacked a stone? Cool, Astema trigger produce will. Thanks for sending a thing from the field to the grave, or Astema trigger draw a card. You know, like I think that there's more to this format than this Converging Wills tournament showcased. Which is why I'm excited. Like, I'm excited to see what comes out of Milan. I'm excited because I know that there were players who didn't play in the Converging Wills event because they didn't want to share their spice for Milan. So I'm excited to see what comes out of that, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of Worlds. I think it's going to be a great event to showcase and show off and play fun stuff. And someone's going to play Prego TK, and Mike Rance is going to be cheering the entire time.
And again, my offer is still on the table. If somebody does win that, steak dinner.
There you go.
I have had that claim in place for 3 years. Nobody has claimed it yet.
Belial X does not exist if burn is still effective. And that's a good question. That's a good point. Like, I've talked about this with some people. I mentioned this, that I feel like this Worlds format, even more so than last Worlds format, is one that is going to reward all three aspects of good TCG play, which is building, piloting, and meta calls. Like, it is going to be a tournament that is decided by whoever can make the best meta calls while being a good builder who brings in the right tech and pilots well. Like, it is going to be a showcase of the best, and I think it's a format that's going to reward that, and that's exactly what I want Worlds to be. Like, that's what I want the World Championship to be. So I'm excited about it. Yeah. And Team USA is the most represented team. I think we have 11 players this year.
Pretty good.
Take over.
Top 8 sweep.
Let's go.
Top 8 sweep. Top 8 sweep. Top 8 sweep. Hoot, growl, hoot, wait. Sorry.
This is the wrong show.
Wrong show.
Wrong show. So I don't know how much time you want to keep talking about the actual tournament, but how much did Mirror affect not maybe you, but like other players in the tournament? Because I know like Mirror was probably still incredibly highly represented in the top 8.
Yeah,
I know against you, it probably didn't feel very good.
Literally, Mirror felt like Mirror came up once in a time. I think one of my matches, Mirror came up, and it only came up after they were able to answer the second mask that I played. Because mask helped me a lot against Mirror. It also didn't help that I was playing a crap ton of 2-drops and above, right? The deck was playing Asmodeus Attendant, 2-drop. Starfall, 2-drop. Odin, 3-drop. Replicant Kaguya, 4-drop. Like, so Mirror, my main kind of lynch pieces, even outside of Mirror, Mask being on field, just dodged Mask. Like, just dodged them, right? I will say, fighting over things like a Persephone, it came up a couple of times. So it was like, pay 2 to answer your Persephone. And I'm like, cool, I paid 1 for this Persephone. I'll play another Persephone. Still answer what I want to do.
Well, here's the other thing, Jeremy. With regard to the mask, doesn't that essentially make Mirror in most cases against your deck also a 3-cost spell because of the additional cost to play a non-resonator spell?
Yeah, so Mirror would almost always cost 2 because they would do like the exclusively try to expel something that costs 1 or less, which would cost 1 and then bump it up to a 2 cost, right? If you have to pay 2 for a Mirror to stop something that I paid 1 for, I'm winning that fight, right? I'm winning that most of the time. I also think that my deck did really well in terms of finding good will sinks. Like, Starfall is a fantastic will sink. I was also playing Hyde, Shooting Star of Light, also a fantastic will sink. because I would just put counters on my things and then be able to destroy, like it turned into spot removal. I think I used it to kill a guardian dragon that was tapped just to not have to deal with it anymore, right? And it, like, I only had 2 seal counters, and so I played it for 2, recovered the 2 stones, got 2 sealed counters, and then was able to shoot a guardian dragon, and then had a spot removal of a seal counter just kind of sitting around. So I mean, that's what I mean, in the fact that like this format, this tournament was weird by how little Mask made it into decks that were played. Like Mask just wasn't being played that much, which was very interesting. So I'm curious to see if we'll continue to see that trend, or if Milan will be very Mask heavy, or if Worlds will be very Mask heavy. Like it is, like, of the 3 regalia, Mask is the most like main deck influenceable, right? And like swinging. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how much pressure it does exert on the format going into Milan and going into Worlds.
Well, Jeremy, I have one question for you.
Sure.
As the only player in top 8 with a Mask.
Hey-o.
How many times did the cards in all non-field zones lose all races effect come up for you, if ever?
So it didn't come up for me personally. Obviously, I wasn't playing to races. It came up in 2 of my matchups. The Faria Heroes, like Guardian Dragon Heroes list that I played against. It really only ever came up to stop the like cheat in a free hero piece. Yeah. It came up in that instance. And then in my last round against Minha playing Seer Little Red, stopping the moons, like Fleeting Moonjewel being able to cheat in another moon, that didn't come into play as much, because even when I didn't have Mask up, because Min was answering them, he like didn't have other moons to put into the field. But it did make dealing with a hyper aggressive Little Red much more comfortable, because I could let, like, under a Mask, I could let Min flip Little Red, go to swing, and then flash in a Dark Alice to block and kill the Little Red without risking Min getting a treasury item.
Right.
Because he didn't have treasury items. Like, so I like, of my entire tournament, that was probably the most influential. The cards in all zones lose all races came up from Mask, was being able to like block, like chump block without fear of triggering a trials, stuff like that.
Neat.
Yeah, most other decks that I played to didn't play to races very much. They like weren't playing to that aspect. And in the case of the Faria list, the heroes piece was like exclusively just trying to cheat in the flame hero, but it was still rushing me down with guardian dragons and like a Faria that was huge. I was like, okay, I gotta try to answer this. So yeah, Random Walk and Regalia Break both did well in trying to answer my Mask over the course of the weekend. When I was people who I was playing against, both cards did well to, you know, pre-recovery Random Walk, move to recovery, came up quite a few times. Same with pre-recovery Regalia Break, move to recovery. Both did good work. In my sideboard, Pointy Hat Witch and Windia were clutch. Those cards put in so much work all weekend. They were very, very good. I think I only won my game 3 against Mint because I had Windia and Pointy Hat Witch. It came down to life totals in game 3 in the last round of Swiss, and I was only able to survive because of the Windia. The format's cool. Go play it. That's kind of my takeaway. The format's fun. Go play it. I don't know. And it was cool to take a ruler from 2016 to a 4-0-1 finish in 2024. I don't know. It was cool. Now, if only I could do it with Fox. I can't. He's fun. He's like tier 2 rogue status. He's not tier 1. Glorious, though. legit a tier 1 deck that people need to be mindful of. Any of the 3 versions, the blue version with Zeus Alice, the red version with Replicant Yarly, or the black version with Odin, I think all have legs. So it's pretty neat stuff. But it's replicants. Yeah. It's glorious replicants because those cards are insanely good. Yeah, that's all I have, guys. That's all I got.
That's a decent amount to talk about for a tournament that technically has no bearing on how the metagame currently operates.
I think outside of exclusively the changes to inheritance for my deck, I think the rest of the data from the tournament was still very good. That's, like I said, great starting, like I said, a starting line for what Worlds testing might have in store for people. Like, I think it is a good place to start. The format is far from solved, I think, but it does give some credence and I think more credit than people were giving to something like Glorious. Like, you can't just shrug it off. And other things that might surprise people, like Mindless Moonstart, Life Loss Burn ended up winning the whole event. Couldn't take, you can't take it for granted. I mean, they lost Chef's Tears, they lost Inferno, but I mean, they still got cool Life Loss package tools. You got to just be mindful of that kind of stuff, right? So lot of learning to be done in the competitive space still. A lot of fun to be had in the casual space, which is great.
My challenge I'm going to issue to everyone in the chat right now.
I'm listening.
Coming off. Because I had to read this because I forgot this was part of the effects of Mask, which is why I asked you about it, Jeremy. If somebody in the chat can find a way to make a deck with Mask that benefits from the cards in all zones lose all races other than your opponents, I'm curious if anybody finds anything.
Oh, man.
A deck that benefits from the race blank?
Yep. You yourself, not blanking your opponent's stuff. That's why it's a challenge. I don't know if it exists, but if it does.
I actually don't think that... No, I don't think that exists at all.
But I think it might.
Well,
it's a neat place to end the night. Tried it doesn't exist. That's okay. Well, that's it for us for tonight, gang. Thank you all so much for being here. If you haven't already, go ahead, like I said, click that join button down below. Also, I forgot to update the intro, but the Ruler School Circuit Quarter 4 kits are currently available, so be sure to let your stores know. You can check it out. You can check it out on the Ruler School website. I'll also put it here if you guys haven't seen it. The Ruler School Circuit mat for this time is Wu Jia Wu in a power suit. And the championship version for every kit is the Uber version of the mat. So the champion version for every kit will be the Uber one. So definitely want to get those orders in. They will close, I think, the end of the first week of October. October 9th, I think, is when we're closing orders for them on this time. So be sure to order those. And we'll be back. There will be no feature match this week, because prepping for the tournament took my time, and I did not have time to do good editing and commentating and stuff. So we'll be back next week. We'll be catching up our deck profiles for this week from like the blue Sylvia and some other stuff. And then we'll be back next week with the feature match, hopefully featuring Alex Sandsta. So until next time, this has been myself, DMO73, and I've been joined as always by Paul Reisman.
Olivia. She has a main deck answer.
Hey-o, and Mike Rants.
Hotel, motel, holiday inn.
Class dismissed.